It's so nice to just sit down and chat a little bit.
Definitely.
And chat about our favourite songs, in fact. And one of the ones that I'd like to talk about is The Three Ravens.
Oh yeah, real favourite.
Yeah, which you and I just absolutely adore, and we keep coming back to this wonderful piece by Thomas Ravenscroft, and would you believe it's written so early, 1611, from the book Melismata. It's so beautiful. You sing it so beautifully, that kind of amazing vulnerability.
Well, it's a beautiful piece to work with. There's so much character and emotion to get across in it. So in some ways, it's, you know, the job is in the music, really. It's there on the page for you to sort of put out there.
Down there comes a fallow doe, as great with young as she might go. With a down, derry, 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 down, down.
It's interesting to know that this book is quite an important book of the time, 1611, because it was written for the middle class recreational strata of society. So it had courtly songs in it, and it had little ditties, it had songs for the countryside. It was a book for everybody, for people to just enjoy at home, together, down the pub, or in a more formal situation.
It puts in mind for me the idea of people sitting around a table, that very classic image that you have of people round a park book. I mean, would it have been like that, or would it have actually been less formal than that? Do we know?
Well, given the other books that we've seen, the John Dowland books, where it's actually written in parts, isn't it? So you do sit round a table and it's printed so that you can sort of see your part as you sit. So yeah, I presume that would be definitely the case, that people would have got together.
Given the way it's been passed down so orally, perhaps it was more done by memory and by familiarity between.
Yeah, and in a way, this is sort of a consolidation of that oral tradition of people's memories, putting it down on paper for it to be passed down. And indeed, Three Ravens is passed down through the centuries. I mean, it's even performed, you know, today. People know about the Three Ravens. It's quite a popular song. Why is it popular? Oh, because of the just absolute the imagery of it, this amazing story behind it, the characters.
Down in yonder green field, down, down, hey, down, down, there lies a knight slain on his shield with a down.
So I know there's one sort of aspect of this song that we do slightly disagree on, which is just kind of the overall mood and the overall feeling of it. I feel as though I have a more optimistic view of it than you do, perhaps. Do you want to sort of talk about how we reconcile that?
Well, I think my point of view comes from the fact that I'm playing the accompaniment and I've got all these dissonant chords that are sort of resonating, and on top of that, this incredible theme that I'm hearing from your voice and all the vulnerabilities that come from this desolate scene of this knight who's been slain, we don't know why, this figure of courage and hope. And I think that just sort of really strikes a chord with me, and I find it quite hard to reconcile the ending where everybody's died, you know, and there's just the hawks and the ravens circling this scene of devastation. But you are more positive about it.
I do like to think about the fact that this poor knight who is slain receives some protection from his faithful hounds, his own hawks. I consider them to be his hawks rather than wild birds, because the nobility often have, you know, hawks. They have the birds to fly. So I tend to think of them as his own as well, and they're there and they're being faithful to him and they're protecting him, and so is his lover. They're ensuring that even though he's died, he maintains a certain dignity and nobility. You know, he's not left to just rot away in a field. He actually is given a burial, and it's terribly tragic that the lover loses her own life as a result. There's no doubt about it, and it is a terrible, desolate scene from that point of view. But I do focus on the fact that there's this sort of optimistic thing about the protection that love can give.
So the hounds and the hawks are his loyal followers.
Absolutely.
And they
they're
carry on the hope.
They're ensuring that the ill omens that the ravens represent, you know, the kind of their carrion nature doesn't actually destroy him after
doesn't
death.
take over,
Yeah,
so the darkness
exactly.
doesn't completely take
Exactly.
God save every gentleman, such hawks, such hounds, and such a lemon.
And also you've got this amazing scene of humanity where she takes care of him.
Exactly.
You know,
I think
despite her own fears. She doesn't know, how he's died again. This danger could still be there, but her courage takes over and she takes care of him.
She lifted up his bloody head, and kissed his wounds that were so red.
so. I'd really like to talk about the beautiful interlude that you've written, which gives us a pause in the middle of the song, really to reflect on the scene that we've set up in the first 3 narrative verses. Can you tell me about how you create such a beautiful mood to set us up for the end of the song?
Well, because I've arranged that myself, it was I had to make quite a few decisions. I wanted to have a reflection of the tune, almost an echo of it, but I didn't want it to be too high in the register, because that would sound too sort of, again, it could come across as being unfitting for the scene. So I sort of put it in the middle register and added some sort of really nice dissonance, crunchy note to it, as I like to put it. But it's almost this sort of a reflection, but the pain, the sort of the tension and release and the dissonance reflects the pain that's happening.
And then you set up this beautiful death knell idea where
Yes, that's
she's
with the
burying
tag.
him, and you know the prime, which is she buried him before the prime. You know, this is very early in the morning.
Yeah.
That's that monastic hour that you're setting that up. That idea of that bell, and then
We always come back to that
Yeah.
tag idea, and that's just, I love G minor. G minor chords are
just
fabulous.
as well. It's just as well. It's pretty rife in our repertoire.
She buried him before the bride.
But you know it as having different titles, don't you?
Well, I haven't ever sung the Twagglebys actually, but Twagglebys is a clear derivation from the Three Ravens. It's a Scottish ballad, and it's actually a lot more desolate than the Three Ravens, which has that kind of theme of the hope and the protection and the love and faithfulness that's offered. In the Twagglebys, the hounds and the hawks, they've deserted the knight and left him to his fate. The lover has already found herself another mate in the song, and you're left with this scene of the winds blowing over the bare white bones of the knights, which is just so desolate and cynical in comparison, actually, with although it's very sad, Three Ravens, there is just that feeling of hope within it as well, that love is valuable and, you know, an important thing, and, you know, the faithfulness of the people around you gives you some sort of protection.
His hawks, they fly so legally, down, down, down. There's no fowl that dare him come nigh with a dove.
And this is another song that's definitely a song for the people, because it changes through the centuries, doesn't it? Slight changes
There's
in
variations in the tunes
in variations
and in the
in
words,
the
actually.
sentiment.
Yeah.
How it's performed, because I've heard a couple of recordings where the first verse is sort of upbeat a little bit, you know, these ravens are looking in on the scene and, you know, what shall we have for our breakfast type of thing, and it's that we had to be very careful about the speed in which we perform this piece, and we tried to sort of pull it back a little bit in that respect. But it's one that we always want to come back to, and we're quite careful about how we plan it in the programme Love, Sweet Passion, because we don't want people leaving on a, heart-rending note, so we always try and pick the programme up at the end to something that's a bit more joyful, but everybody comments on the Three Ravens.